From Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Von Warnke, author, speaker, blogger, outdoor writer, and videographer, and of course, podcaster as well. I'm really excited that you joined us today, whether you are streaming this show online or whether you've downloaded it onto your mobile device. Thank you so much for tuning in. If it's your first time for the show, to check out the podcast, please tell a friend if you like what you hear. And if you're a returning listener, please rate this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher Radio or however you found us. That would help us spread the word about the show, and we'd really appreciate it. Well, it's been a few weeks since we've had a podcast, and I apologize for that. Had a lot going on lately, and so have my guests on the show, like Bill and Mac and Marty and those kind of folks. I also invested a little bit into the show and to some of the podcasting equipment that I use. Up until this point, I had been using my smartphone, my iPhone, and a lot of podcasters use iPhones and Droids for podcasting and do all their podcasts on a mobile device. I know of several podcasters that do that. And the quality was good. I had a couple of apps that I used for taping phone calls. I had a couple of apps that I used for recording my voice to kind of do the intros and the outros for the show. And that worked well for a while, but I wanted to kind of get a professional touch. And it dawned on me one day when I recently switched jobs a few months ago and had a lot of leftover equipment from school assemblies that I did for years. And had a mixer, had a powered amplified speaker, and I had a microphone and some cables and wires and cables and wires and wires and cables. And I decided to press those into service as podcasting since I don't do school assemblies anymore. And everything has worked out very well. I invested in a new microphone and a new cable and a new mic stand so I can have guests in studio, and I kind of turned my office into a podcast studio. It's worked out very well. So I'm really excited about this. I hope you can kind of hear the difference in quality and that it's even a better listening experience for you. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. So today we're going to talk about urban bow hunting, and I authored a book, an ebook that you can buy on Amazon Kindle or Google Play or on my website at dustinsprojects.com, and the book is titled Urban Bow Hunting: The Guide to Hunting Small Properties for Big Game. And this is a relatively short ebook. It's the shortest ebook that I've authored, and it's jam-packed full of information. It's less than 50 pages of full 8.5 by 11 pages of content, a lot of pictures, and a lot of content there that's just jam-packed of good stuff. And I think you would enjoy the ebook if you were to purchase a copy. It's only $9.95, and it's just a guide to hunting deer especially. And you can hunt wild hogs in urban environments and small game in urban environments, but we talk about big game mainly because it's kind of a trend now lately to hunt urban properties for big game. And that's something I kind of wanted to bring to light on this show today. I invited a friend of mine, Michael Foster, to come into the studio and do a podcast with me because I turned Michael on to urban bow hunting a little bit over a year ago. And Michael has had the experience of hunting with me, of being introduced to urban bow hunting, and I thought he would be a perfect guest to have on the show. Michael's originally from Michigan. And he's a great guy. He's a great friend. Him and I have done a lot of work together when it comes to, clearing land and hauling lumber and that kind of stuff for the landowner that we helped for this urban hotspot that I have hunted for many years. And I'm really excited about this interview with Michael Foster. So, Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Would you like to tell our audience how you first met me and how you got into this subject of urban bow hunting?
Sure. I started out I was watching TV and I saw a bone collector, T-Bone, Travis Turner. He was doing an urban bow hunt up there in New England somewhere, and went and told my boss about it. And my boss said, have you ever seen that show Chasing Tail? And I said, no, I haven't. He said, well, get on the History Channel and look it up.
I forgot it was on the History Channel.
And I looked it up and I watched it, and I got a little bit more curious into it, so I hopped on YouTube and when I hopped on YouTube, I looked up a bunch of videos, and one happened to be in Brushy Creek that was right down the street from me. So I started watching the videos, and that's where I met you.
We met on Facebook, right?
Yeah, and then I added you on Facebook, and then that's when our relationship as friendship started.
Yeah. No, that's great. That was about a year ago, right?
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. So you had your first experiences with urban bow hunting starting this year. Tell us how that went on our hunts together.
Well, you started out, you started taking me down there. You showed me the spot. We fed a little bit, hauled some firewood, and helped out the lady and
the landowner, right?
And checking cameras. And as we got into the season, I was able to harvest my first urban deer, that doe, and on opening day. And shortly after that, you got to harvest Mr. Big, and and then we went back out in November, and I got to harvest the second one, and then you harvested another doe, and it was just a good experience all the way around. I mean,
Great.
Learned a lot with it, you know, what to do, what not to do, what to expect, what not to expect, and overall it was just an awesome experience and kind of a cross off my bucket list.
Oh, cool.
So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, one of our first hunts together, it was really hot, and we've got all these up on our YouTube channel. If you search me on YouTube, I've got Michael Foster's bow hunts done separately from my other videos, so you can watch and see his experience with urban bow hunting. But yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that. So you went on to get your own hunting spot after this, and part of that was into reading the ebook that I wrote. In fact, Michael was one of the first people that read the ebook that I wrote on urban bow hunting. Tell us how that went.
I was just basically on Facebook as usual, and I was just scoping out through the groups and talking to a lady on there, and we started talking, and she added me on Facebook and invited me out to her property after we've had a conversation and got to know each other. And I drove myself out there, and I introduced myself, and I got to hunt a little bit out there last year with, you know, during the gun season, and I had a couple of opportunities, didn't really connect. And, you know, I've been invited out there this year. She invited me out there. I got to do a turkey hunt in the spring, got a Jake out there, and been doing some squirrels and shooting some rabbits. And
with your shotgun, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, had that little air of with my shotgun that had the piece of bark in the spring, and had to get that fixed. But now it's fixed. It should be ready to go for the dove season.
Oh, great. And dove season's right around the corner here in the summer of Texas. So, which starts September 1st?
September 1st.
I'm looking forward to it. That's great. Once dove season gets here, it all starts over again, right?
Yeah, it's just a never-ending cycle in Texas.
There's so much you can do in Texas as far as hunting goes, which is really cool. So walk through with me the basic things that you can expect in urban hunting.
And I've had this talk with a lot of guys that come through my work, and mostly vendors. And I tell them that I urban hunt, and the first thing that they think of is that these deer are pets.
Right. I hear that a lot.
That's the first thing that comes to their mind. And I'm here to tell you that they are not pets. They are used to humans, but not the way that you would think. They're used to their scent. They're just if they see a human, they're going to bolt just like any other whitetail would. But no, you gotta kill that stereotype. They are not in any way, shape, or form humans.
Right.
So,
or easier to hunt because they're urban.
Exactly.
In an urban environment. No, that's very true. And the thing that I have found is, you know, a set of products that I use on every hunt. Michael had an opportunity to experience this year with me, and that was, what are the 3 products that I use in the field, big time? Or I guess 4 products now.
Barnett crossbows.
Right.
Grim Reaper broadheads. I know the Luminok arrow tips, which is actually really cool. I got to try those out, and you get to watch that arrow directly hit where you want to, or where you see it hit, and it's easy to find too.
And you get to find it after the hunt. We're hunting into a creek, in kind of a creek bed area, creek valley kind of with a creek running through it. And you can see this on my videos. Most of the time when I'm shooting it, I've kind of moved that direction because of the situation of wanting to catch a good shot. When you're taking the shot, your arrow normally goes into the creek, and what I found was Luminox are pretty waterproof. Because that's every time you and I got one this year, those Luminox kept on blinking. You can find your arrow afterwards.
Yeah, and I really like that because arrows are not cheap.
Yes.
Bolts are not cheap, so you definitely really want to get that back.
Right. And one of the bolts I've started using, I was using Lumen arrows for a while, but recently connected with Gold Tip, and I'm now using Gold Tip Laser 3 bolts, which have been phenomenal. They're very strong bolts and very pleased with those. And Grim Reaper broadheads. A lot of people ask me about the gear that I use. Grim Reaper is a brand that I choose because it works over and over and over again. With urban hunting, you don't want a deer to run far. You don't want a deer to, you want to have a quick, clean recovery, and Grim Reaper has done that for me over and over again. Tell them about your experience.
And yeah, you get a lot of people that are that talk about rages, they talk about muzzies, they talk about swacker, I think they're called.
Right.
But, they're the real deal. I got to watch both my deer probably run about 30 yards, no track job, and the hole that was in the deer was just phenomenal. I mean, you don't want too big of a hole that'll ruin the meat, but you want one that'll make an ethical kill.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I believe is using a 3-blade broadhead versus a 2-blade, because you get a better blood trail. If you have to track a deer with a 3-blade, you get a bigger hole than just a 2-blade, going through it. I write about that in my ebook, Urban Bowhunting. I believe in a 3-blade, regardless of what you choose, if it's fixed or if it's mechanical and so on and so forth, just because of the situation of you want to be able to track that deer, and 2-blade just doesn't do it for me. That's just my whole thing. Will you have any thoughts about that, Michael?
The 3-blade, I could see the extra cutting and just getting into the vital areas and really doing some damage and making a clean ethical kill. Right.
Clean ethical kill is what it's all about, especially with urban bow hunting. What are some of the challenges that we face as urban bow hunters?
Well, one, you're facing the deer.
Right.
The deer's got its nose, it's got its eyes, and it's got its ears. Another one is the people you hunt around. Humans in general. You got people out there that want the deer removed. You got people who want the deer to stay. Deer are, especially urban deer, are very destructive, and deer populate. They wreck the landscape. Destroying people's flower beds. They multiply. I mean, a deer can have 1-2 fawns per spring.
Right.
They multiply quickly, and that causes for disease and automobile accidents is really high in suburban areas that have really high deer populations, and there's the list goes on.
And some of the challenges that, and I'm going to soon have AJ DeRosa on the show. He is the author of The Urban Deer Complex, which is a book that Michael and I both read about urban bow hunting in the Northeast. And a lot of what he says is true for Texas and any other place in the United States or wherever you're listening to this. One of the things that you run into is human interaction and having to have permission from landowners if you are in a private subdivision. Because the thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this is Texas is 93% privately owned for the most part, around 97% privately owned. And 3% of public land, and Michael's been hunting a lot of public land. And but the thing is, and we'll get to that in just a second, the thing with hunting in urban areas that are privately owned is you have to have landowners' permission and be very professional. And I write about that a lot in my ebook, about being very professional in how you approach a situation, because you do have a lot of anti-hunters out there and folks that don't want you there. I've been running into that at the urban hotspot that we've been going to this last year, because we have neighbors that only want you to hunt during a certain time of day and so on and so forth. So there are lots of challenges, even though it can be a lot more affordable to hunt that way.
The main purpose of when you go down there is to be as stealthy as possible. If you do get access to a property, you don't want the neighbors knowing that you're necessarily there, because they might not want you there.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things, is not to make yourself out there to the whole community.
Right.
You want
to be kind of stealthy.
You want to restrict yourself to that little area and make sure that that group of people knows that you're there.
Yes.
Not the whole subdivision.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things that I do, and I talk about this in the ebook as well, is, go knock on some doors before season starts, let them know what I'm doing, why I'm there, that this is to help the ecosystem, and, that I'm not a threat to them or their property. And 90% of the time I get permission from landowners. My game warden and I have a good, close relationship, and he's told me if you ever have an issue with here in Texas with folks telling you shouldn't be there or not letting you access a property to retrieve your deer, so on and so forth, call him, because, he can help you resolve some of those issues. So having a good relationship with your game warden is crucial, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, game warden's a good tool.
Yes, because you want to be on the up and up of what he's doing, and that he knows what you're doing, and so on and so forth. But, be stealthy in the regard of not going into a situation, without people knowing that you're there, because that you can get into trespassing and all that other stuff. But as long as you have the blessing of the landowners in the area, I've not had any issues retrieving any deer, and I've shot dozens of them. Michael can tell you, he's watched all of my videos. I think you've watched all of my videos, just about. Yeah, you've watched a lot of videos that I've done. And we even have 2 videos, like I say, on YouTube of his hunts, so you can see and kind of watch the what we do and how we hunt. And we're so close to civilization, aren't we?
Yeah,
hunting down there.
The northwest Austin area has really grown. In fact, the whole Austin area is growing. I've watched towns like Cedar Park and Georgetown and Round Rock, and
these are the North Austin suburbs we're talking about, Northwest Austin suburbs.
It just seems like they've grown overnight. They put roads up overnight, subdivisions up overnight. It seems like, it's really growing down here big time.
Yeah, and we're close to a regional park, playground, a road right up the road from the creek. Right up the creek is a road, and you can see all that on my videos. There's traffic passing by, across the creek and up the road from us, which is kind of cool that we're hunting deer that close to civilization. But it's completely legal. We have the game warden's blessing. He knows where we are, what we're doing, and that's why I think you really need to have the game warden on your side. How did you kind of told me a minute ago about how you approached the landowner. How do you kind of do that from a cold setting? Do you just, network with people? Because that's what I've done.
Networking's a big deal. You got to know somebody. You got to, networking is your biggest tool for anything, whether it be a job or hunting or anything. You just got to get out there and talk to people. I get really nervous and shy around people that I don't know. So
right.
You know that firsthand. I'm just kind of like...
You've come out of your shell quite a bit over the last year.
Yeah, my son's just like his dad. It's just hard to talk to people, but yeah, you got to come out of your shell, and you got to know people, and you got to just network it. Right. That's perfect. I think that's the biggest subject, is just networking. You know a friend, you talk to another friend, he knows a friend, he knows a friend. That's just the way you work it.
Don't be afraid of asking for permission to hunt, especially when it comes to private property. And also you can access property like in the public hunting realm. We have Granger, which is a property, Granger Lake area, a wildlife management area. Is that right? WMA. Yes. That Michael hunts for small game and that kind of stuff out there. And you have the opportunity in a lot of municipalities, especially in the Northeast and places in the Midwest, where you can hunt in all kinds of different fields. And there's 50-acre plots here and so on and so forth that you can hunt by just asking for permission. But there's also, in some states I know, there's urban bow hunting season. There's urban seasons for bow hunting. So there's a lot of opportunities there. You just have to know where to look for them. I kind of stumbled into it when I started, because I was hunting a 5-acre property that was owned by a church member of the church that I went to at the time, and I just asked them for permission to come out and bring my crossbow and set up my own feeder, set up my own blind, and that place produced a few deer for me over the years. You just have to be able to kind of network and be in the right place at the right time to find places to hunt, especially here in Texas where we have the private land, where we do. So that's definitely a consideration as well. What's the best hunting setup for an urban situation? Would you see from hunting from me? Would you say?
I'm a ground blind person.
I am too.
Just because I like ground blinds. Nothing against people that hunt from a tree stand.
Right.
but just my preference, I like hunting from a ground blind. I've always have.
I'm glad you did, because that's what I hunt out of, is a ground blind.
Yeah.
So when you came as a guest to hunt with me on video, I was happy that it's a little easier to film from a ground blind too. That's why I haven't filmed a lot of elevated stuff unless I'm in a stand, a deer stand, or a hog hunting scenario or whatever, where I'm elevated off the ground. It's just a little bit easier for me to film my hunts that way, but it's safer too. Absolutely. There's more of a challenge though, right?
Yeah, because you're right there in the deer's nose. And
his eyes.
Yeah, and his eyes. So they see just a little peep of light or just a little movement or anything, and that doe is that boss doe. She's gonna give you away.
Right, and that's happened to us before, hasn't it?
Actually, it has. We had probably about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 deer sitting in front of us. We were just watching them crunch on corn.
Morning hunt, right?
Yeah, it was a morning hunt.
Yeah.
And I believe there was a doe that was on my side, or a little button buck, and I ended up saying something to you, or you said something to me.
We whispered. It was really close.
And he heard us and just bolted, and he just cleared the whole field.
Yep, blew and went, blow and go. So that happens when they wheeze at you. It's kind of all over. That's kind of the warning sign that they give out, and that's frustrating. But the one way that I always suggest that you dress in a ground blind with a black background is what?
Black.
Dress in black. I call it ninja style. And that's just kind of the way that I hunt, is from a ground blind with a crossbow. Or this year I'll try it from a tripod with a compound bow in another spot that I'm going to hunt. But dress like a ninja. You don't have to camo up, but you do want to be concerned about scent. You do want to be concerned about, sight, having face cover. Michael and I in our videos both have face covers on, or some of you guys like camo paint and want to, paint war paint on your face. That's fine too. But just being, stealthy and both, so the deer don't see you, and that way it's not suspicious to the people that are around you either,
Yeah, that's a big thing. Camo, I don't want to get too political into it, but camo to me is overrated. I wore it. I wore it inside the blind because that's really all I had was a bunch of mismatched camo, and
you looked fine.
And,
you looked good.
But honestly, we're not out there to impress the deer. We're out there to put them in the freezer. So, but yeah, black is all you really need. In fact, you go back into the early days, especially up in the Midwest, they wore plaid.
Right.
So a lot of these. Major companies like Realtree and Mossy Oak, nothing against them, but, I own Realtree and Mossy Oak.
Sure, I do too.
But it's, they're out there to make a buck. They're just like any other company, but realistically, you don't have to wear camo unless you're, in a tree stand or, So, you're in a ground blind, you could probably go out there and, just a black sweatshirt and blue jeans, as long as you're pretty well concealed and your ground blind's dark enough, where they can't see you, you should do fine.
You want to blend in with whatever you're doing, and if you've got a black background, you want to dress in black. That's the whole idea there. Another thing is that AJ DeRosa talks about in his Urban Deer Complex book is to dress like what? Do you remember this from the book?
I don't remember.
Dress like you normally dress.
Yes.
When you're around the deer, when you're going to fill up a feeder like we do here in Texas, or if you're going to freshen up a food plot or anything like that, you don't have to camo up completely to do that, because deer are used to seeing, in an urban scenario, they're used to seeing people in normal clothes. And one thing that AJ even suggests is to hunt, and if you're doing any still hunting or stalk hunting, you might want to even dress in the clothes that you normally wear. He's had experience, as he says in the book, where he's had other, where he's seen a guy running on the trail, and the deer doesn't even spook, and he dresses in regular clothes and sees a lot more deer and does a lot better because he dresses in normal, clothes what the deer are used to seeing.
And we've done that too. We've walked down there plenty of times in our clothes. In fact, we've walked down there in the morning and there's already deer down there, and
that's true.
And they busted us, and they're gonna snort and they're gonna do their thing, and they'll come back.
Right.
So
one of my videos is the one on Mr. Big. That was my big buck from this year, and it's my biggest urban archery deer and my biggest archery deer to date. It basically is a really nice deer. Michael and I watched this deer on camera for a couple of months.
August,
September,
and then you got them in
early October.
Early October, yeah.
Early October, yeah.
So, basically with Mr. Big, he was a 9-point, about 120 class deer. And for us down there, because there's another thing that needs to be said about urban properties sometimes, is they get overpopulated and the deer get stunted in growth.
Yeah.
That's what we saw with the 2 deer that we harvested. You'll see them on film if you watch our videos, and they both are kind of smallish, even though they're about 2-year-old does, just because you get so many deer, you get so much inbreeding, you get so much of that kind of stuff, they kind of stunt in their growth. And that's just kind of the way they are. But we watched this buck for a while, and it was early season. We had already filmed our first hunt with Michael Foster the previous weekend. I came down there Friday afternoon. The deer were already down there. I lost my chance. It was awful. Put out some corn, got back in my blind, and didn't hear anything or see anything for the rest of the night. I went down there Saturday. And I had just come from a school event where I was dressed in my work clothes, which is, button-down shirt, long-sleeve shirt, slacks, so on and so forth. And I did not know what to do because the deer had already come through and cleaned up the corn. The feeder had already gone off. It was late in the day. It was like 6:30. So I went ahead and put out a little bit more corn and waited in my blind, and guess who showed up? Mr. Big. And, I made a clean shot on him. He ran less than 50 yards. You've got the video on YouTube. You can watch it. It's a cool little story. But Mr. Big was a true trophy for me because he was the nicest urban deer I had taken. And you can see in my office, Michael, I've got some other deer that I've taken in urban scenarios, but he was among the finest and a good specimen of a deer. And part of that, I think, is good management of an urban property that I'd hunted there for, 4 or 5 years before I harvested him, was because I was taking out spikes, I was taking out management deer, and so on and so forth. And that's what happens with any property, is if you manage it correctly, even in an urban situation, good things happen.
Yeah, a lot of people want to go out there and just hop in a stand or a blind and harvest the biggest thing that they can find. And you got to do your work. You got to do your you got to do your quality deer management, and you got to harvest those does. You got to harvest those spikes, and I call them freaks. The deer that have one spike on one side and 3 points on the other side.
Right.
You gotta call them out of there, and the smaller 8 points, that are 4.5 years old, and they got about 13 inches or something like that. I think is the legal. You got to take them out of there, and it's you just got to do your quality deer management, and you've done a lot of that down there.
Yes.
Especially I went down there and I got to see firsthand. I got to see deer that Dustin probably wouldn't have seen, when he first started hunting down there.
Right.
So,
but thinning out the herd in an urban situation is important, and it's something that I'd like to bring, a call to action for our listeners is to go out and try urban hunting, find an area, network with some people. You can hunt closer to home. You don't have to drive all the way to the deer lease. You don't have to drive all the way to, your normal hunting woods when you urban hunt. But, find a place that's right outside of the city limits like we did, and network with some folks and get some permission and knock on a couple of doors and shake a few hands. It's not that hard. I kind of started it all from scratch, my urban hunting experiences, but it's all about building those relationships and having good relationships with your landowners and neighboring landowners and so on and so forth. So that's good.
Yeah, clean up yourself, take care of the person's property that you're hunting on, present yourself as professional,
right.
Be a good example, not only to urban hunters, but hunters in general.
Right.
Because the stereotype is that hunters are a bunch of backwoods rednecks.
Right.
We all know that. It's nothing new. And you got to present yourself as, I'm responsible, especially if you're a younger guy. A lot of younger guys, that are in their 20s like me. Somebody's going to, you knock on somebody's door, they're going to look at you like, oh, man, this guy's trouble.
He's here for trouble.
Yeah, this guy's going to start shooting at everything, and, you just got to present yourself as professional.
Right.
Clean up your, after season, clean up your blind, clean up all your gear, make it look like you weren't even there.
Right.
Offer some work, say, or even a thank you. Say, hey, can I bring you over some deer burger
right.
or some backstrap? We all love our backstrap, but, if you want to hunt that place again next year, it's all right to give a little, to get a little.
Right.
So
be a sharecropper, like the olden days where you farm the land and you keep a little and give a little to the landowner in payment. And, the place where Mike and I hunted this year was owned by an elderly lady, and it was a very, very sweet lady. She allowed me to come down there for 5 years, up to this point, and has been wonderful to hunt around. She's not a hunter, but she encourages hunting because of the deer overpopulation in that particular neighborhood or behind that neighborhood. One thing that Mike and I both did was went through and cut some firewood and hauled some things and cleaned up her property a little bit in trade or in Thanksgiving for her giving us the opportunity to harvest deer. And, like I said, that resulted in me harvesting my biggest archery buck, which was a big deal for me. But, I can't say enough about, giving back, giving thanks, writing a thank you note, taking them some deer meat or offering their neighbors some deer meat or whatever the case may be, because you can make a lot of friends real quick with that kind of attitude.
Yeah, and when you're in especially the urban hunting community, friends are good.
Yes, absolutely. The more friends you have on your side, because we'd have a couple of anti-hunters. I don't know if I ever told you this, Michael. Maybe by text I did. We had a couple of, I did tell you this. Yeah, we had some poachers that were nearby in that same neighborhood area, and they were shooting deer with guns at night, just unthinkable, for people that are responsible urban hunters. And one of the homeowners association folks called this landowner that whose property we hunted on, and she said, it's awful that I can't believe they're hunting here. She was a total anti-hunter. And she said, I have a very responsible young man and his friend come and hunt my property, and they're welcomed here anytime. She went to bat for me. She was in defense of me as a hunter. And my goodness, that made me feel so good.
Yeah, you got to have friends. Be responsible. I mean,
right.
That's the thing,
Absolutely.
Because if you were an irresponsible hunter, she would have said, yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with you. This guy's never going to come out here ever again.
I'm not allowing him to come back on my land. So, and we've done a lot of work. I've mowed lawns for her. We've hauled firewood. We've cut down tree limbs. I mean, all kinds of different stuff. But it's a barter and trade system, really, where you spend some of your time so you can get some of your time in the woods, which is a very fair deal. One of my landowners even planted some oats for me one year at another property that you weren't at, Michael. But he liked having me so much, he made a food plot that brought in deer one year, and I was just amazed. I was so thankful for him. I brought my own feeder and everything else and set it all up there. But, you never know what's going to happen when you're really nice and professional and respectful. And, it shouldn't be said, but in today's society where a lot of people are just in it for themselves, I think it needs to be said on this podcast that, you act nice and you treat people well, you'll get pretty far. In this world of urban hunting. As we kind of close this out, Grim Reaper broadheads, the particular size that I use when I was using my C5 Wildcat, it is 1 3/4 inch Grim Reaper broadheads, huge cut radius, and just an awesome recovery. When I'm using my Buck Commander Extreme or BCX crossbow, I am using 1.5 inch crossbow broadheads or Expo broadheads that they have from Grim Reaper, and they work just as well as the 1 3/4 inch, quite frankly. They're just designed to work through a system that has a stronger spring on it, so as they open, they won't open midair in flight because so many crossbows are so fast these days, especially the BCX. You don't want to have them open in flight. But the nice thing about Grim Reapers is you don't have to worry about rubber bands or O-rings or any of that stuff, right, Michael?
Yeah.
It's a joy because you just I just test my blades before I put my bolt in the crossbow and make sure that everything, I do the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. I do this little three-pronged thing to make sure all the blades and everything work. Snap them open, snap them closed, put them in the crossbow, and I'm ready to hunt. But we do that, and then for bows, like I said, the two crossbows that I've used pretty heavily are the Barnett C5 Wildcat and the Buck Commander Extreme. And both of them are very affordable. They're a whole lot cheaper than a lot of other crossbows in the market. I'm a fan of Barnett because they don't have the, they have a really good crossbow at a really affordable price. You've had some experience hunting with Barnett, right?
Yes. I really like that bow. It's really smooth, had a smooth trigger. The flight of the arrow is just perfect. I had no problems with that at all.
Great. Good. That's good, and it has a nice little scope on it. That's nice, and the Wildcat C5, which is a good starter crossbow, has a red dot scope, which is a great asset to you as well. Most of your shots are going to be under 30 yards, and I'd recommend you limit your shots to under 30 yards when you just start urban bow hunting, just to make sure you make a clean and ethical kill. You have anything else you'd like to add, Michael?
No, I just want to encourage. Well, I guess I do.
That's okay.
I guess just encourage everybody to get out there and try urban bow hunting. I know a lot of people out there frown upon it a little bit. Whether you be on the hunting side or the non-hunting side, it's a good cause. You're not just helping yourself, but you're helping a lot of people in that community. Whether it be from saving their car or saving their landscape or filling your freezer. I mean, you kill multiple birds with one stone. Also, I'd like to just say that, get out there and pick up a crossbow. I mean, a lot of people, even if you're already a compound bow hunter, just pick up a crossbow, or a gun hunter. Just pick one up and shoot it. It's just a good family weapon, for your it's fun.
Yes.
But it's a good family weapon for your kids and your wife and friends. You might have a friend out there that might not know how to shoot a compound bow, but if you have a crossbow on handy, you could take them out there and show them the hunting and fishing world.
Right. And if you're a rifle hunter, crossbows are great because they work very similar to a rifle as far as the aiming and the the trigger and that kind of stuff are very similar to rifles. And I've turned you into a crossbow hunter, haven't I?
Yeah, and I used to hunt with a compound. So
and there's nothing wrong with compound, but I'm going to hunt with my compound this season. But with the ground blind, I just did not have a room to pull back because I'm such a tall guy. In my ground blind, I didn't have enough room to pull back a compound bow. And the crossbows are just they're great, they're efficient, they're awesome.
And if you're a diehard gun hunter, extend your deer season.
Right.
Buy a crossbow and hunt during the archery season.
Absolutely. Which is a month here in Texas before gun season even starts.
So you extend your deer season by a month.
Yeah.
So.
And that's one thing that I'm a big advocate of is getting. They legalized crossbows in Texas in 2009, and that's when I first bought mine, and I've been addicted to doing it ever since because a lot of people call crossbows cheating, or there's been opponents against them. But the cool thing is that it's easy point of entry for folks that have never shot archery before, and it's a very efficient and effective way to hunt deer.
Yeah.
Or any other wild game.
It's fun.
It is.
I really like it.
It is. So, well, thank you, sir. Really appreciate you taking some time to sit down in my studio today.
Oh, thank you. It's always a joy to be here.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Man, that was a fun interview. I really enjoyed having Michael in studio. He was my first in-studio guest with my new podcasting equipment. This is the first podcast with my new podcasting equipment, and I hope you're enjoying it. I really have a lot of fun doing these podcasts. This is a dream come true for me. So again, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Please tell a friend. Please rate this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or FM Player or however you found us. And feel free to check out my ebook. Like I said, it's under $10. It's $9.95. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on my website at dustinsprojects.com. I also have several of my urban bow hunts online that on YouTube that I talked about in the interview, and you can definitely check those out at my YouTube channel, which you can find through my website at dustinsprojects.com, or just search YouTube for my name, Dustin Von Warnke, or Dustin Warnke, and you should come up with some urban bow hunting videos, several of them. In fact, all of them that I've recorded down there, I've produced into video form, and that's, I want to say, probably 10 hunts or so that I've hunted down in Brushy Creek and filmed. And this year, I'm probably going to change things up and try a different urban hotspot that's more of a rural setting, kind of like where Michael's hunting now. That's a good, 5, 10 acre, 15 acre, area that's urban and a little more rural, and have some fun with my compound bow this year. And I have a blast doing this, and I have a blast doing the show. I want to thank you so much for reading, if you read any of my articles or ebooks or blogs, and thank you so much for watching our videos. And be sure to check out our Mac and Prowler website as well. It's MACANDPROWLER. And we've got a lot of videos there for predator hunting and small game hunting and fishing and bow fishing and, of course, big game hunting as well. And so I really want to thank you so much for taking the opportunity to download and listen to this show. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't already, and thank you so much again. Have an awesome day in the outdoors.